Fun fact, today's episode contains every bodily fluid known to man, plus this.
Was that like a very tiny banana smoothie?
Sadly, no. It's medicine to get rid of the fungus I have growing in my mouth.
You have fungus in your mouth.
Yeah, and on my ass, actually.
Is it like a yeast thing?
I don't really know. Not as far as I know. But as we've established, what do I know?
This is the 20th something episode in a row where we document that you're not actually a doctor.
Not a doctor.
Worldwide pants. Hi, Dave. Anyway. How you doing, Joe?
Well, surprisingly well, considering this is day 42 in the hospital.
Whoa. That is 42 too many.
42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, though, so there's something there at least.
Is that why you wanted to record today? Because it's day 42?
No, I just realized that now.
So it's been a few weeks, and the last episode was once again me being all moody on my own.
It got a lot of views quickly, so maybe people prefer you being moody on your own, I don't know.
I think it might be that thing that they're maybe watching because I might have super horrific news.
Again, yeah, they're like, oh damn, he's still alive. He's coming back for another episode.
But then again, everybody loves a comeback. The comeback story is the number one formula for success.
This is true, because it has been a while since we recorded. We recorded almost 6 weeks ago. Since then, I've been traversing the desert like the Jews.
Yeah. I hope you brought a lot of juice to the deserts because it's really hot and warm there. To drink.
I know what you meant. I perfectly understood. I have iced tea, actually, not juice, but...
Shout out to the Swiss iced tea that Joseph has been drinking exclusively.
Pretty much exclusively. Because of the fungus in my mouth, everything's had a weird taste for the past few weeks. And so the only thing that sort of tastes normal is Migros iced tea. So I've been having a lot of it. I should maybe address this. Yeah. I should maybe address this. As you can see, I have an oxygen tube in my nose.
Uh-huh.
So I've got an oxygen tube because I can't quite breathe 100% on my own yet. But it's getting lower and lower. I'm only getting about 2 liters at a minute at the moment, which seems like a lot, but it's not. I was on like 8 or 9 a couple of weeks ago.
8 or 9 liters of oxygen per minute?
Well, it seems like a lot, but you take several liters of breaths in each breath, of oxygen in each breath. Your lungs are pretty big.
Did they tell you how many a normal, healthy person breathes in and out?
I didn't ask, and I didn't even look it up, but I figure a lungful is a couple of liters, and you take at least 14 or 15 breaths a minute. So anyway, 2 liters isn't much. It's they're quite happy, and they're trying to wean me off it, but it's taking a bit longer than I would hope.
You quickly get short of breath.
I do a little bit especially when I move around. Talking is not too bad, but when I walk, I have to put it up to like 4 liters. And
you can adjust it with like a thingy?
Not me, but they can. And so they give it to me to get that extra boost of oxygen so that something can go to my brain.
That's nice.
Because I did have one point, we'll get to that later, where I had basically no oxygen in my brain, and that was not a good look.
For the hospital or for you or for both?
Oh, for me. We'll get to that a bit later, but it was pretty horrendous. I'm a bit embarrassed, but we'll get to that. And also I have this in my neck, which you might be able to see, which is like 4 tubes coming out. It's a catheter, but it should remind you a little bit of London, because we used to live in London. And it's called a central line.
Nice.
Which, for people who don't know London, is the tube line we would take to get to Ealing, where we went to film school and learned how to do these beautiful shots.
That's true. But you're looking good despite all the merch and all the bejiggle bedazzle. You look really good considering you've been through the depths of hell.
Yeah, I pretty much have been. I'm completely bald still, and I've like literally lost pretty much all the hair on my body this time because of this high density chemo I did. I've got no pubic hair left. I've got practically nothing on my chest. I'm like a baby or a swimmer, I guess.
Aerodynamic as hell.
Absolutely, except that I have no breath, so I would probably drown after the first breaststroke.
I'm guessing you've lost a few pounds as well, or kilos, or...
I lost about 10% of my weight. in a month.
Are you eating?
I am finally now. For basically 4 whole weeks, I was fed through a tube, partly through one of these tubes, which sends food directly to your blood.
Delicious.
And partly through a tube that they stuck through my nose and that goes down your throat and goes into your stomach. As you can sort of imagine, isn't that much fun to have installed. Because the first time they put it in, it was one of the worst experience. I told them top 5 worst experience since the beginning of cancer. Having this thing shoved down my nose. I could not relax. I was crying my eyes out. I had the thing down my throat. Luckily, the nurses and doctor who did it were amazing, and they sat with me for an hour where I tried to get to calm down, and I finally did. And it is true, you do get used to it in the back of your throat after a while and don't really notice it. And so it was okay for a day or so, a few days. But this was a time when I was vomiting profusely and often large amounts. And after, I guess, I don't know, 3-4 days, in the middle of the night, I woke up to throw up and threw up this tube. So suddenly I had a tube hanging out my mouth, which was still connected to my nose. Luckily for me, I was able to have the good reflex not to just yank one end of it, because I wouldn't have known which end to yank. And so I was just in the dark in my room, trying to find the call nurse button, couldn't find it, was yelling, help, help, help. And luckily, again, these amazing staff here came within a minute and took it out.
Wow.
So that was also probably in my top 5 worst experiences at that point.
You're really gathering some fun experiences this summer.
Yeah. As we might notice, I just wanted to mention this episode may be a bit sort of not in order. I might jump back and forth to different things because a lot has happened in the past 6 weeks. I'll probably forget half of it, but there'll still be a ton of stuff, but it might not be in a completely logical order, even though I do have a sort of plan in front of me, which we're already not really on after point number 3, as usual. We were mentioning 40 days ago we did the last episode, but things got bad pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I started, as I said, vomiting very often, and it was weird because I didn't have nausea, but about 4 or 5 times a day, I would fill up 2 or 3 of these. Just suddenly it would come on. I mean, not fill up to the brim, but just suddenly it would come out violently. And it was just liquid, of course, since I wasn't eating any real food by this time. I was eating the liquid that got into me. And so it was just a mixture of bile and liquid food. Bile, another one of our bodily fluids I promised to mention.
So what is bile? What's
with the questions? It's stuff that's in your belly that...
belly acid or something like that?
Basically, yeah. As far as I know.
Would you say bile is vile?
It was. It tasted vile. Plus, the food they put down my throat, I had sort of, I guess, that taste. You know, usually, and this is really fun to talk about, usually you throw up and it might have a little bit of a taste of what you ate. Well, this just tasted horrendous. I almost forgot I've got to take my 6 o'clock pill.
Pretty 6:45.
My 6-ish o'clock pill. I'm lucky in the evening I only take 1 pill. Shit. I took the wrong pill. It's not the end of the world, but I might fall asleep before the end of the show. I'm not kidding you. That was my before bed pill, which I should have taken in a couple of hours.
Oh, fuck me.
They're not that strong, though, so yeah, but okay, if I fall asleep before the end of the show, you know why. And this was not planned at all, just so you know. I also took the right pill, though, now.
Cool.
Just a tip for people. When you're taking your medication, maybe don't do it live on TV and concentrate on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, in the evening, I was going to say I only have to take 1 pill. In the morning, I take about 10.
10 pills?
There's stuff for blood pressure. There's stuff for my heart. There's stuff for my stomach. There's stuff for my kidneys. There's some kind of cortisone thing now, too. Plus, I have to take 4 shots of that stuff I took for my fungus in my mouth, and I have to get my ass shampooed twice a day for the fungus on my butt.
Really?
Yeah. It's getting a lot better, though. The fungus on my butt, to mention another bodily fluid, is due to all the diarrhea I've had this past month. I hope people are really enjoying this episode. It may be the grossest one we've had.
I think it might be the grossest podcast episode of all time.
This is possible. Because, yeah, when you're stewing in your own diarrhea, well, it's like a baby wearing diapers. That's why they told me several times I had an ass like a baby's, and it was all pink and red. But it's getting better.
This episode is literally a shit show.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you'll cut this out if you want to. You can.
No, we're keeping this in.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd say. You're keeping it in, unlike me and my diarrhea.
That's funny.
But so anyway, that went on for about 10 days. Diarrhea, vomiting, sort of one after the other, one after the other. My days were horrendous. I didn't do anything. I couldn't watch a movie. I didn't feel like talking to people. I mean, I did have some visits from my family and stuff. That was okay. But I would get text message, didn't feel like answering, couldn't read a book, didn't want to listen to music. I would just sit here and stare at the wall, basically, and wait for the next expulsion of some kind of bodily fluid.
Did you get any sort of rest, or were you like fully aware when you stared at the wall for weeks on end?
I slept some, but not very well, because I'd wake up several times a night to throw up. So it was not a restful time, and I guess it got worse and worse, because then there was sort of the big incident. One night, and it was weird, well, one day, so this is after 2 weeks in the hospital, it was actually a day when I was feeling a bit better. I went out of my room for the first time. My parents wheeled me down to the cafeteria, and I was feeling okay. Then I came up, and my heart rate started getting faster and faster, and I started getting more and more agitated. And this is the bit where you've already mentioned it briefly in last week's episode, and I'm going to say more or less how I remember it, but everything might not be exactly true because I was slightly out of it pretty quick. And so I was getting my heartbeat going up, my blood pressure. Doctors came to see me, and they told me they were going to move me to either the ICU or to a place called, here at least, soins intermédiaires, intermediate care. And so they told me they were going to take me down there, and I did not want to go. I said, I refuse to go. I'm not going down there. I like this floor. And I was probably already having not enough oxygen going to my head, because I got mad at the doctors, insulted them, said I'm not going. And after about an hour or so of this, they didn't give me a choice. They said, we're taking you not to the intermediate care, but to ICU. And I was really not having it. They wheeled me down. I was screaming in the hallway. They brought me down there. I was yelling, is everybody else being tortured too? I threw everything I had on my bed on the floor. I was ripping those little stickers they put to do ECGs.
You remember it being logical at the time, or?
I couldn't say logical. I just remember being very upset and really not wanting to go down there and being really mad. I guess it didn't seem logical. It didn't seem illogical either.
But I mean, just you remember something that is clearly an exaggerated reaction to somebody who just wants what's best for you. So it must be weird to remember being present, but clearly not all the way present.
I guess so. It's hard to explain exactly how I remember it, I must say. I just remember doing it, and then later, much later, like a week later, being very embarrassed when I thought about this, although nobody was mad at me, of course. And so then they brought me down to the ICU, into this room, and I sat there on my bed for probably about an hour and refused them to do anything. They did hook me up to one or two things, but I said, nope, you're not doing anything. And tons of doctors came in, and I said, I'm going to throw up on you if you stay in here. And I know that because I wrote it to a friend. My doctor friend that I've mentioned on here several times before. I went back, I didn't remember this, but I texted with him for about 2 hours that night, and really angry texts. And he was saying, obviously, listen to the doctors, they're doing this for you, it's what's best for you. And I was having none of it, saying, no, they're all assholes, I'm leaving this hospital tomorrow, I'm getting out of here, I'm going to throw up on them, I'm going to shit all over the place. So yeah, some sort of embarrassing text message to go back and read as well. Mm-hmm. And then, basically, suddenly I remember nothing, and I'm being woken up with, I don't remember how many, several doctors and nurses around me, a tube down my throat, and them telling me, calm down, sir, we're going to take the tube out of your throat very soon, and your friend is arriving in 20 minutes. And they repeated this to me for what seemed like an hour, which made no sense to me, because I was like, well, why is it still 20 minutes? But it was probably over the course of about a minute or something this happened, and I didn't know what was happening. And this is actually 6 days later. Little did I know at this point.
So you don't remember anything, obviously, from the coma?
I don't remember anything. I spent 6 days in a coma, where apparently several times I was conscious. or semi-conscious because they tried to get me out of it earlier. And like one of my friends came to visit and it was his birthday. And apparently he said to me, he was trying to talk to me and he was like, "Hey, Joseph, you're going to come out of your coma for my birthday. How does that make you feel?" And apparently I took his head and pushed it down to my chest and then went like this and touched my heart. So something must have been coming through, sort of. But I remember none of this. My parents came to visit every day during this coma. I don't remember any of it.
That is insane. Not insane as in crazy, but as just like being able to tell the story afterwards.
And so I guess that means I've only been here 36 days, though, because 6 of them I don't remember. So that's the good side of it.
Fair.
And it was funny, my parents said, because they had been obviously extremely worried about me. And when I was in the ICU lying there in my coma, was finally the first time they saw me calm after a few days, and they felt reassured. And they actually even went out for dinner, and it was the first time in a couple of weeks that they sort of had a breather.
Yeah.
And so what I actually had was a pretty rare syndrome called takotsubo.
Takotsubo.
Exactly. It's a Japanese word that means octopus pot.
As you do.
And it's these traps they would use to catch octopus. The octopus hides in the trap in this pot, and then you pull it up to the surface. The octopus thinks it's hiding and being safe, and you get it. And it's sort of an elongated shape, like an old Greek amphora where they have the wine in it.
Okay.
And the reason it's called that is because part of your heart takes that shape, or your heart takes that shape.
So your heart changes shape and size?
One of the ventricles, I think, compresses, and so it gets elongated and more compressed. And this is called takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Or another name is broken heart syndrome. And the reason being is because it often happens as a reaction to high stress, basically. You could get it could be with bad news, could be something high stress, and the stress hormone is released and messes with your heart, basically. And I'm pretty unlucky because this happens to 9 women for every 1 man.
Okay.
So I feel bad for the 9 women who are going through the same thing at the same time as me.
So you're saying women's hearts break more easily than men?
Apparently, yeah.
Okay.
In French, I also saw one place where they also called it syndrome of the happy heart, because it could also technically happen when you're faced with very good news. That suddenly brings up your stress levels. So like you suddenly find out you're going to be a father and takotsubo!
Takotsubo! So when they say in like films, etc., that they feel like their heart is bursting of joy, that could be the happy heart syndrome.
Exactly. Fun fact, that song, Owner of a Lonely Heart, it was originally called Owner of a Takotsubo! Much less, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But so my heart apparently was only beating at about 22% of its normal strength. And therefore it beats much faster to try and compensate. So I was going at 200 beats per minute, basically.
This was before, under, or after the medically induced coma?
This is before. This is the period right before when I went into before they put me into the coma. So apparently I saw one place where this might not be exactly true, but they estimate that perhaps 6 or 7% of heart attacks are actually broken heart syndromes. That just looks like a heart attack and feels like a heart attack.
So you can die from a broken heart?
You can. They say not that many, about 4% of people who have this syndrome end up dying from it.
That is almost kind of romantic in a weird way. Like when they say, oh, he died of a broken heart, then it's like, shut up, he didn't die of a broken heart, but maybe he did.
That is true. So this is the most disgusting episode we've done and the most romantic.
It is cute in a sort of horrific way, but when an old couple have been married for 6,000 years and one of them dies and the other dies right after, broken heart syndrome could be the case.
Absolutely. That's very true. But the good news is that, a heart attack can actually damage your heart. This takotsubo doesn't usually, and I've had various scans and x-rays and ultrasounds, and my heart, it looks like wasn't damaged and should be able to recover completely.
Okay.
It still isn't beating as strong as it should, so I'm still beating a little bit too fast all the time. if I were to check, I'm probably at about 120 beats per minute now, whilst you're probably at about 70 or 65.
But your mom said to me at one point a few weeks ago that your heart wasn't strong enough for the next round. Are they waiting for it to be strong enough?
What, you mean the next round of chemo?
Yeah.
Because I was supposed to come here and have 2 rounds of this high density chemo. Technically this should have been the end of the second week of the second one, but now my heart is not strong enough to go through that again, and there's very little chance they're going to actually do a second round of chemo. The next step will most likely be surgery to remove everything that's left. The good news is I did respond well to the chemo. So the tumor went down in size quite a bit. Not as much as if I could have a second round, but this is not quite certain yet. Basically, they want to wait until my breathing is fixed and everything else as well. And then the doctor said, then we'll discuss the next oncology parts of what's going to happen. So, when I woke up from this coma, as I said, surrounded by people, and my friend did end up coming 20 minutes later because my parents couldn't get here fast enough, and they figured it would be nice for me to have a friendly face there when I woke up. So they called a good friend of mine who lives in Lausanne, who was there, and I think they were right. I think it did help, even though I was, at first at least, very confused what was happening. And I remember looking at the clock and realizing it was daylight and that it was about 11:45 or something, so noon. And that confused me because I remember it being night when I came down. I only realized after that it was 6 days later.
What was that feeling like, being told that you have not been here for 6 days?
Very confusing, but at the same time, somehow I wasn't really surprised.
But did you believe it right away, or did you think they were joking?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised because I realized I just had a tube out of my mouth. I was hooked up to tons of machines. I had like 16 machines behind me monitoring tons of different things. I had tubes coming out of everywhere. So I think I believed it right away. I couldn't talk at first. I was like at no voice. And I remember there being music playing. This shitty piano music was playing when I woke up. And I sort of got agitated and asked him so I wanted to talk and I couldn't communicate. I couldn't get many words out. So I asked him managed to say I want pen and paper. And that was so weird. I couldn't write. It was so hard. I was trying to write. And what I wrote was, the music sucks. So my friend had a good laugh at that when he finally understood that that's what I was writing. It was complicated. It was quite complicated to write. I remember I needed a cue, because in French it's quelle musique de merde is what I said. What shitty music. And I couldn't draw a cue. It was like a circle-y thing with a line at the wrong place. It was very bizarre.
Nice.
But then I sort of woke up-ish pretty fast. And my parents got there, and I was able to communicate. And then 2 other friends came, and we listened to some reggae music for a while. And there's somewhere there's a video of me going like this to reggae music.
I did see the video.
When I still can't actually really talk, but I was, I guess, a bit happy. Because they had told me, and this was after I'd already seen a physiotherapist who came in and made me get out of the bed to sit in a chair. Which, sitting in a chair is surprisingly tiring after 6 days in a bed. You think you relax sitting in a chair, but you're actually using most of your muscles, holding up your back, holding up your arms, your neck, your head. And so the guy was like, okay, you're going to get out of the bed, hold on to my arms, pull up on me, and sit in the chair. And he wanted me to stand for about a second. He pulled me up, I didn't pull up, and then I fell into the chair and insulted him quite a bit. I told him he was an asshole. There was another nurse who came in, insulted her quite a bit, told her, and I can't even remember what she said to me. She said one thing, I disagreed. She said something else, and I remember saying, ma'am, we've already established that you know nothing. Stop trying to talk to me.
These poor workers.
I know, but I guess they're used to it, because the next day I then gave her a box of chocolates and apologized. But she wasn't mad at me.
It goes with the territory, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they're used to it. And same thing, the physio, the next day, I had him again and it was a bit better. And I told him I'm really sorry. He says, I get insulted all the time. Most people hate me in this hospital. Don't worry about it. Because he's making people do things they don't want to do, you know? Like walk 5 more steps than you think you can. But he's doing it for you.
Yeah.
You need it. The other weird thing was, 'cause I ended up spending then 6 more days in the ICU, hooked up to all this stuff, and getting my blood taken twice a day to get it checked. Another one of our bodily fluids, just to mention. And I had my notes say pumpy things on my legs. I had these weird things around my legs that pump, inflate, and deflate to sort of get blood circulating there. I had weird hallucinations, sort of. I would answer people that weren't there. I guess because of all the drugs I was on. I would suddenly answer a question and and my mom was like, I didn't say anything. And during the night, she wasn't even there, and I'd sort of say something and realized right away that nobody was there actually. But I would have these tiny moments of hallucinations. And another weird thing is, when you close your eyes, you see what, sort of a red-black color?
Yeah.
Me too, but for about 3-4 days, I saw like yellow with purple sort of floating through it. And the nurses, I think, thought it was weird because I asked several nurses, I was like, excuse me, what color do you see when you close your eyes? Because I see yellow and purple. And it looked kind of beautiful, though. It was like, it was in constant motion. It looked like I had a big pool full of yellow paint and there was purple paint floating through it. I remember thinking if I could somehow make this in real, I could make a fortune selling pictures of it. It sort of looked like my friend Reto's early work.
Cool.
And these were pretty tiring days because in the ICU, the care is intensive, as you might guess.
Shocking.
Meaning there's always somebody coming in, there's always something beeping, there's always something they need from you. So you don't sleep that well. Even though they give me drugs to sleep, I would still sleep off and on and wake up. I'm surprised I still haven't fallen asleep. That's good. The pill I took earlier hasn't kicked in yet. Lucky for us. It is going to be weird, though, because it might screw up my night schedule for tonight.
That's not good.
But we'll see. And the other thing, I've mentioned the nurses, how great they were, but I can't even put words on how great they were. Because, I mean, of course they do the whole medical side of stuff. But I would often at night, I would start crying and just feel shitty and not even exactly know why. And just call the nurse and say, can you sit with me? And they would sit with me for half an hour and hold my hand and talk to me and make me feel better. And I can't stress enough how precious that was for me. And this would be pretty much any nurse would do that. So I'm really, really impressed. And once again, if ever, I think I've mentioned this already, if ever you've got a chance to vote on nurses' salaries anywhere, anybody, vote for double them, triple them. They deserve it. I mean, because they're doing this and then they're cleaning up my diarrhea.
That deserves a triple in the wages.
How is that to go from really sweet again to diarrhea?
But yeah, I know what you're saying. Not all heroes wear capes.
That's absolutely true, and I 100% agree. And so then after my 6 days in intensive care, things started getting slightly better. I mean, I still felt pretty bad, but I guess I did feel slightly better. And they moved me up to what I mentioned before, intermediate care or maybe high care, or I also saw it called acute care on the internet. Acute care, which is not as nice as acute nurse.
Fair.
The nice thing about that was they brought me up to the 17th floor because intensive care was down on the 5th floor. I had no view. I was pretty close to the helicopter pad. I would hear helicopters landing all night and then see people in terrible states being wheeled into intensive care. But they moved me up to the 17th floor where I'm pretty sure I had one of the 2 or 3 best rooms in the whole hospital because I had a view of the whole of Lake Geneva, the Alps in the background, France on the other side of the lake. I could see the Alps on the left, the beginning of the Valais. It was absolutely amazing.
Cool.
Except I couldn't actually really see it because my bed was too low. But all my visitors told me how nice it was.
All right, so it wasn't one of those beds that could go up and down?
Well, it was, and at the end of my stay there, I went up. But at first I couldn't because I had a thing in my arm here called an arterial catheter, I believe. and it was to measure blood pressure in real time and other stuff. And it had to stay level with this machine. So I couldn't actually move up because it had to stay at that height.
Okay.
And so I stayed there again, I think, for 6 or 7 days. Had quite a few visitors, which was nice, and did start feeling a little better. And then finally, after a week up there, I was sent back to my old room where we recorded the last episode, which is here, which surprisingly stayed empty for like 2.5 weeks. Even though the hospital was quite busy, they said, no, we wanted to keep it so you could come back to your room. Whenever you could come back, I could come back immediately.
That's cool.
And I came back to my room and there felt okay. Right after my friend Nicola, who you've met, came to see me, but like literally 15 minutes after I got to my room, and I ate a bag of chips with him that were nice. And it was like the first thing in a month that I ate that I wanted. Because at this point, I was still hooked up to a tube in my neck, giving me food. And I forgot to mention they had put one down my nose again. So I again had the nose tube. But I threw it up again after a couple of days. Nice. But that was all right because they decided not to put it back in. And I started eating real food and started having a much better time. This past week, I've been more or less like you see me now. Pretty good spirits. My parents, amazing, have kept coming. Every day they come for a few hours. And other friends, some of them you know, Camille came over, Marianne came over, Palouk came over. I'm forgetting people. People you don't know, Christophe came over. Got, of course, phone calls from people. And now actually felt like answering them. Felt like answering messages, so that's been quite nice.
You even butt-dialed me the other day.
I even butt-dialed you the other day. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm very glad to hear it. I was, like most people, quite worried there at a certain period where the reports were crazy. But happy to see you've returned.
Yeah, but I'm still in the hospital, mainly because of my oxygen problem. The fact that that's what they're waiting to fix. And the problem is they don't know exactly what the problem is.
Isn't your immune system also fairly low?
It's gotten pretty much better. My white blood cell count is quite high again. That's why I'm in a normal room now, and people don't have to be all dressed up in scrubs and covering everything. The thing is, I've got a lung problem in my left lung, which is the one that's not as affected by the tumor, but there's some kind of liquid in it, and they don't quite know what it is. And this has been there for about a week. They've known this is there, and they were sort of wondering what to do. No signs pointed to infection, so they didn't really want to give me antibiotics. So it could be just an inflammation, but they weren't quite sure. And then the pulmonary doctors came to see me, and they were like, well, we could do a bronchoscopy. So that's stick a camera down your throat, go in there and get some of the juice out and analyze it. He said we could, but it might not actually give us any information where we're not quite sure if we want to or not. What do you think? And I was like, what do I know? You guys are the experts. I said, I'd like you to have as much information as you can, so I'm not going to be against it. And so they decided, okay, we're going to do the bronchoscopy. They wheeled me down to another floor, and the doc explained everything. And the thing is, you don't get full anesthesia. They put your throat to sleep, and then they sedate you. So he said, there's a good chance you're going to watch this on the screen, because I could see the screen that sees what the camera sees. He says, you might watch this, but you won't remember a thing. And that's what happened. Suddenly he started saying, we're going to give you the sedation now. And then boom, it was an hour later and I was in a different room. And like, huh, what? That's done? Okay.
All right.
And so they analyzed that and didn't really find out what it was exactly. They again sort of ruled out an infection. And so they just decided Friday, so 2 days ago, to start giving me some kind of cortisone, a derivative of cortisone. And so I've been taking that for 3 days. I'm not sure. I think my breath has been getting a little bit better. When I move, I seem to not get as short of breath as quickly when I get up to go to the bathroom or walk a few meters.
Okay.
Because I have been walking a bit with the physiotherapist as well. My record being 850 meters a couple of days ago.
Hey.
With like 5 or 6 or 7 breaks. Not because of my strength. I've got enough strength, but because not enough breath. I'm short of breath pretty quickly. And as I
Do you
said,
walk with one of those thingies or just on your own?
The very first had a big one that you're actually leaning on. Then I had the small walker with wheels, the sort of one old men you see in the street have. And now I've been walking with nothing.
All right.
And like today, my parents came. It's Sunday, so there's no physio. But I walked down to the cafeteria with them, pushing a wheelchair that I could sit in myself for the breaks. But I pushed it and walked with it. So walking is not the problem. It's just the breath. And they hopefully, I'll find out tomorrow again. I'll see the pulmonary doctors. I imagine I'll have another scan or an x-ray, and they'll look if it's getting better in my lung. And the idea is to hopefully wean me off the oxygen and possibly go home at the end of this week. But I'm not really counting on it yet, because otherwise it'll probably be disappointment.
Yeah.
I kind of have a feeling I'll still be here on day 50, but who knows?
Expect the worst, hope for the best. Isn't that the thingy?
That's kind of it, but I'm mostly just expecting the worst. No, that's not true. I am really hoping to get out this week, because the staff is wonderful, as I've said, but I still wouldn't mind having a break from them and these four walls, because the idea then is for me to go home. I don't know for how long. It won't be that long, but to recuperate enough so that the oncologists can get on to the next step, which, as I said, is likely going to be surgery, and pretty hardcore big surgery.
Yeah.
Thoracic surgery. So yeah.
I'm just happy I'm happy about everything. Not your lungs, but I'm happy to see that you're back from, because you were pretty dark there at a period, and obviously everyone understands that it's not you, it's the everything. But I mean, you were even dark with me, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I thought we had a pact about joking about everything, and you were just like disregarding everything I said.
I didn't even make a joke with you?
No, I mean, you said some depressing stuff, sort of like, it's not going to be another episode, blah, 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 blah. It was just dark stuff.
I don't remember even that.
I'm not holding it against you. It's just weird, because the logical part of my brain would want to say, come on, Joe. But then I was like, that's not going to help if I say that. So I would just say, sure, Joe, that's fine. But yeah, happy to hear that you're back in higher spirits.
Well, yeah, I am glad that we are doing a new episode. It's nice to have a long chat with you.
Also, you're awake despite having taken a sleeping pill in the first minute.
Well, the thing is, it's funny, because even when I came down here at first, I wasn't sleeping that well, and they'd give me this sleeping pill, which they told me take it at about 9 o'clock. So I took it about 2.5 hours early today. Said take it about 9 o'clock, and I would do that, and it would knock me out like half an hour or an hour later.
Okay.
And then the problem is I'd wake up at 1 in the morning and be wide awake. So I'd sleep for 3 hours, wake up at 1, complain that I couldn't sleep, be given another sleeping pill that would take like 2 hours to take effect, and then finally fall asleep from like 3 or 4 till 7 in the morning. And then one very clever nurse said, hey, I know what you should do. Take both of those sleeping pills at once. One of them acts fast, but not long. The other one acts later. Take both of them at like 11 at night. And that's what I've been doing for the past 4 or 5 days. And I've been sleeping from 11:30 till 8.
Nice.
Yeah, but I don't know what's going to happen today, because I'm not going to be able to do that. I may, right after this episode is done, fall asleep in my dinner.
At least, if you were going to fuck up, it's nice that you did it on camera. It's nice that it turned into entertainment for the rest of us.
Absolutely. I'm really glad that I can turn my cancer and everything involved with it into entertainment for you guys.
Not the cancer, just the sleeping part, the accidental sleeping pill.
Well, I mean, I still do kind of hope that the past 22 episodes were at least partially entertaining, hence my cancer being entertaining.
Sure. It is by far the most entertaining cancer I've ever come across. Then again, the last few episodes have been kind of depressing. So it's very nice to see you smiling and laughing now, even though we've set a new world record in the amount of bodily fluids mentioned in 1 hour.
Oh, yeah, I forgot one bodily fluid. That's true. Some very, very nice, my brother's closest friends, two couples of his closest friends, they commissioned, I don't know if I told you this even, they commissioned a comic artist from the region to make a comic strip for me. And so it's a 6-page comic strip telling one of our stories from the very first episode, where I tell you about going to the sperm bank with my family. So people who haven't watched that yet, that's in the first episode. It's a lot funnier than this episode. It's one of the stories that made me want to do a podcast. And so there's a comic strip that ends with me sitting in a room jacking off. So there we have it. I think we've covered all the bodily fluids now.
That's back when we used to have only one bodily fluid per episode.
Absolutely. How boring was that? Speaking of people, I'm mentioning people who maybe didn't see the first episode yet. They're probably the same kind of people who haven't subscribed yet.
Yeah, bastards.
Or even liked the page. So I would suggest subscribe, like these things, share it, tell your oncologist about it, tell your brother about it, and of course check your balls.
Check your mother flipping balls.
Because maybe if you check your balls, you won't have to be throwing up bile for a month and having hardcore thoracic surgery done on you, which I would say is a good thing.
That's something everybody wants, to avoid that.
Yeah. So check your balls, check your brother's balls, well, that might be awkward. Check your boyfriend's balls. Tell your brother to check his balls. Yeah.
Considering it's off camera and we're doing everything live now, I'm touching my balls at this moment. I am dressed down here, but I'm just checking my balls.
I'm not, but I'm looking forward to getting to have a pee in my pee bottle, which is conveniently right next to me.
Another bodily fluid, ladies and gentlemen.
And we forgot that one, you're right. Good thing my nurse actually suggested earlier when I was setting up here. She said, do you want to have the pee bottle next to you so you can show it? And I was like, no, I can even pee during the episode, which I have or have not done. I shan't tell you.
So we're up to normal vomit, bile, urine, sperm, diarrhea.
Blood. There was a lot of spitting involved also when I was throwing up.
Phlegm.
We mentioned tears as well. There were a lot of those.
And we have the lung shit.
Which we don't know what it is, so unknown liquid. So yeah, I think we've covered the whole gamut, as they say.
That's like 10 or something.
And your bodily fluid bingo card is like, hey, I got that's a bingo. Anyway, so now we got to today. I'm looking forward to seeing my doctors tomorrow to finding out what's next, to maybe having an idea of when I can come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that'll be in the next episode.
It will indeed.
Dr. Dre.
I'm Dre from back in the day.
Yeah, because the next episode is a Dr. Dre song. You know that, right?
Nice.
That was my reference.
La 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 la.
Exactly.
I should have gotten that.
You should have, because your name is Dre, goddammit.
I'm looking forward to the movie. Like when somebody makes a movie of all this, the journey. It'll be like Philadelphia 2.
Well, you'll obviously be played by Ryan Gosling, because you know.
I went out for a drink yesterday, and a girl approached me and said, "Have you ever heard that you look a bit like Ryan Gosling?" And I said, not to sound cocky, but yes, I have heard that. And she said, "Well, his autistic brother." And I was like, nice.
That's kind of true. That's a better explanation. So you'd be Ryan Gosling, and I'd be played by, I don't know, Bruce Willis?
He wouldn't remember his lines.
That's true.
We need somebody younger than that.
Ving Rhames. No, not Ving Rhames. That's not going to work. I didn't mean to say Ving Rhames. I meant to say Vin Diesel.
I'm thinking, just in terms of the bodily transformations, maybe Christian Bale is the choice.
Okay.
Because he's prepared to do anything and everything to live the role.
I'll take that.
I'm Buttman. I have constant diarrhea.
Exactly. Speaking of Christian Bale, we've been speaking for a while, and it probably is about time for us to bail.
Ooh. Bunny! It was, as always, a pleasure.
It was a pleasure for me, too. I'm after 6 weeks, I'm really happy to be able to do this again.
I'm pretty sure most of you out there are happy to have seen this episode and see that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
And thanks to everybody who gave me support, be it through text messages or through comments on the YouTube page. It really did mean a lot, even if I didn't necessarily answer right away.
And if he answered rudely, he apologizes.
I do. I'm sorry, as we say in Canada.
All right. Joseph, it's your time to fall asleep in your dinner, on your dinner.
What? Huh? It pretty much is.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.